right, it is a very good afternoon. It is the 28th of July. It is the last session, our workshops that we've been running for MusicEx 2024. So please, as you watch this session, also don't forget to tag us at MusicEx, and the hashtag is MusicMove. So the session is on how to set up a project recording studio that delivers professional results. And who is this hosted by? It's hosted by foremost professionals in the industry. Peter Turk from Turk Music Technologies and Dobie from South Africa's foremost music technology store in South Africa, namely Turnkey Music and the Multimedia, otherwise referred to as the Music Producer Store. We also have a guest, and I would like him to introduce himself. Apparently, he's all the way from the UK just for this session. It is over to you to introduce yourself.
Hey, my name's Sam. I work for the Focusrite Group. So I work with Peter and Toby because they distribute our Adam Audio studio monitors across South Africa.
And I thought it would be a very good idea, seeing as he only arrived a short while ago, to put him on stage, because if he was sitting in the back there, he'd probably fall asleep. So jet lag. So let's get him up here.
I woke up at 6 o'clock yesterday morning and I haven't been to bed yet.
And if I could just maybe make mentions, that we may be the last workshop, but I actually think we're the most important.
Oh, wow.
You know why we're the most important?
Why?
Because we're talking about how to record music.
Yep.
And if we weren't recording music, we wouldn't have a music industry. And an important point that you mentioned there is how to record professionally, but equally so how to record professionally, but also affordably. And I think that's very, very, very important, because the reality is that you can have in your mind, you can be the most musically creative person around, but if you're not able to translate those musical ideas into something that's tangible for people to listen to, no matter how good your ideas may be, nobody will ever get to hear them. And we've got to face facts. The reality is that recording was, and I'm preempting you a little bit here.
I know, right? I'm looking at you and I'm like, Peter?
Yeah, so I may look like I'm only 20-something years old. Why are you laughing? But I've been doing this a while. And if I may just go back 20, 30 years. To set up a recording studio 20, 30 years ago would have possibly cost you R500,000.
Sure.
Recording back then was really only for the domain of a select few. If you wanted to record, you would have had to go to a recording studio. You would have had to say to them, guys, I'd like to record. What are you going to charge me to use your facility on an hourly basis? Today, that has all changed. Today, the ability to record can be done on a smartphone.
Yep.
It can be done on an iPad. It can be done on any device that actually records digitally, PC or Apple Macintosh.
Yeah.
So we have a hashtag, and our hashtag is make music, not excuses. That's it. Make music, not excuses. If you have an idea in your head, all right, speak to somebody can assist you with allowing you to translate those musical ideas into reality.
So, Peter, I love that statement. Make music, no excuses. I have a friend who says, if you have an excuse, tell it to the mountain.
That's
I love that. So I'm going to ask that. I've heard that you guys are the dream team as far as making music producers' dreams come true. Please, can you delve into that?
Well,
tell us about yourselves and music producers' story.
Well, I think Friday night, Battle of the Best that took place on that stage outside there. And I actually made a video and I sent it out. And I started off by saying, it's not every day that you have an opportunity to make someone's musical dreams come true.
Yeah.
And that gentleman who won the Battle of the Best, when he came up to us, he was in tears. The guy was so happy. He was ecstatic. In fact, somebody was talking, making presentations. He turned to me and he said, "Sorry, what did they just say? I'm actually in shock. I didn't hear what they said." And I said to him, "I'm in shock too. I didn't hear what they said either." All right. And that was just one little example of making someone's musical dreams come true. And I've got to say, when we first became aware of the fact that there was going to be a battle of the best, and David Gresham was providing a recording contract and there was a cash prize, that same evening, it was actually the evening they introduced this concept to us, I approached Lenice and I said, "Guys, there's one thing that's missing here. Is you've got a recording contract, you're giving the guys money, but the guy does not have, or the band or the winner does not have anything to actually record on. So here and now, I am committing to pledging 100,000 rands worth of recording studio equipment that will allow whoever wins Battle of the Best to record whenever they want to record. They don't have to go to a recording contract or go to a recording studio. They can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I've got a creative idea, sit down and record." And that same day, the day after, I sent a mail to all my overseas partners, my overseas suppliers, the people that we represent in South Africa. And I said, "This opportunity has presented itself." And included in the mix was our team from Adam. And within 48 hours, they'd come back and they donated, sponsored a pair of Adam studio monitors worth 15,000 rand. And that was just the beginning. Right? So this gentleman, and that is an idea of one idea. Then the other idea is where people come to us and they say, "I have an idea, I've got a budget of a certain amount. How do I actually translate that into something that people can listen to?" So we eat, we sleep, we breathe, that's all we do. We may sell other musical equipment, but our focus, our core business is on music technology products. You come to me and you say to me, "Peter, I have a budget of this particular amount. We will put something together that actually works for you." But the emphasis is going to be, it's not going to necessarily be the most affordable, but it will be professional and it's going to give you the best results at the same time. Yeah.
So here's what I love, the value. Let's have the conversation. You've got this amount of money. We can do this. Value, collaboration. That's what we'll be talking about across the entire workshop. It's about partnership and collaboration. I think a lot of our musicians are scared when it comes to talking money, budget. So thank you for actually saying, let's have that conversation and let's see what the output is. Dobie, I'm going to give this one to you. Why is Turnkey so unique?
Because we don't only sell products, but we sell a solution
Right.
to anyone who basically want to do recording or music production, or even just anything to do with audio. And we basically give the best solution we can within the budget. Sometimes even over the budget, but we know it's the best for the client.
Right.
And I would say that's what it makes us unique.
Fantastic. So now let's deep dive. To those that are watching us, if you've just walked in, it's a very good afternoon. Last of our workshops, we're talking about production in the most cost-effective way, most simplest way, with the expert sitting right here. And it's about recording chain and the nitty-gritty. My first question is, what are the basic computer specifications needed for home recording? I mean, you already started preempting that 20 years ago versus now, completely different story. Peter?
I'm actually going to leave that one to Dobie. He's actually the technical guy. But yeah, what I am going to say is that 20 years ago, if you wanted to record on a computer, you didn't really have much of an option. It had to be an Apple Mac. That was it. I mean, Apple Macs, even now, are very expensive. They were even more expensive in those particular time. The reality is that 20 years ago, the processing power in your average PC wasn't powerful enough to do what it was required. 20 years ago, the format of recording changed. If we go before that, recording was done on reel-to-reel, cassette, tape. That was a completely different situation. If you're actually sitting where they talk about things like cutting and splicing, where you would take a piece of tape and you'd realize you made a mistake here and you'd actually cut it, remove that and stick it together with some sticky tape and then carry on. So that was less labor intensive. And then, as I said, the more processing power that was required on computers, the more limiting it became with regards to using a computer that's such as a PC. And you were forced to absolutely use an Apple Macintosh. But today
Pretty much, you can use Windows. Apple Mac, as long as it's like 8 gig RAM or higher, preferably 16 actually, but 8 gig RAM or higher, a i5, i7 processor, just have a 512 SSD hard drive, you're good to go. Laptop, desktop doesn't matter. Yeah, so any like normal computer can actually do it. But of course, if you want something better, then go for, I would say, like a gaming laptop or something like that to have better performances. But don't use your computer as an excuse. Whatever computer you have, just connect it and get to work.
Yeah, I agree. And something else to add there is that there are so many apps out there on your phone. So if you're transient and you're not necessarily stuck in one place, if you've got ideas, you can pick your phone up, you can put these ideas into your phone. It could be something that you translate to your PC, your Mac, your iPad when you get home. And it can also be the gateway, well, for want of a better word, the gateway drug for the young producer or the first-time producer that wants to get into production in the first place, that's a bit scared about committing to that hardware straight away. You can download free apps and get yourself started, and then buy add-ons if you feel that way inclined. Or it could be that's when you walk into that music store and say, right, I've done this, I now want to actually get serious about it.
Well, that's actually that's very true. I mean, if you look at it now, if you look at companies like Ableton, if we look at companies like FL Studio, they all have mobile apps that allows you to actually produce conceptualize, get ideas, and then, as I said later on, when you get to your desktop, to translate it onto your desktop. Yeah.
You just mentioned apps. Give us one or two of those.
So there's Ableton, Notes, there's BandLab, Novation, which is one of the other brands within the Focusrite group. They started with a Launchpad app, so that took from our Launchpad MIDI controller, and I mean, 4 years ago it had 7 million downloads. And that's just something that I used to take on the plane. For some reason, I went through this period of about 2 years of being nervous of flying. I don't know why. I was fine with flying, then I got nervous with flying, then I'm fine again now. But whenever I got a bit nervous with takeoff, I'd get out this Launchpad app and I'd start jamming stuff. You could record it and then put it straight up onto SoundCloud. So there, you've got a track straight away that you can share with your friends, or it's an idea that you can get started with. There's loads and loads of apps out there.
You see, this is the reason why we need these types of workshops. I'm going to talk about digital audio workstation, or DAW as it is called, and why is it important for home recording? You want to pick that up?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the hub of everything, because some people work outside the box, but it's where your ideas go. It's where you can play about with things. It's where your music production comes from. You can do it without a MIDI controller, an audio interface. You can just use a mouse if you really want to do that. So if you're on the go and you've just got your laptop, you can just use your laptop. But generally, if you were to buy an interface, they will come with some sort of light version of a DAW DAW, and it means you can get started straight away. And quite often, not always, but quite often, you'll find that the one that you use first is the one that you carry on. Which is why also it's amazing to work within education facilities, because quite often that MIDI controller you use, those studio monitors you see, that interface you use, and that DAW, that DAW that you use, is the one that you go on to start production on. Ableton, for example, has a completely different workflow to something like Logic, and it is very, very much a personal choice. There's no right or wrong. Pro Tools was king at one point, Cubase was king at one point, and there are trends within DAWs as well. I know that in South Africa, FL Studio, I mean, you can talk about that. FL Studio is king, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think Sam's actually downplaying the actual power of the DAW as a digital audio workstation. So your digital audio workstation is, in effect, the nucleus of your recording studio. You can't have a recording studio unless, of course, you have somebody who has an old reel-to-reel or cassette player. You can't have a recording studio without a digital audio workstation. The digital audio workstation actually emulates or copies all the key components you would have for recording in a recording studio. So you record your audio onto the DAW. You record your MIDI onto the DAW. Your mixing. It basically is a virtual translation of what would have 20 years ago consisted of analog gear, that big mixer, your panning, your left, your effects, your processors, your EQ. So yes, in terms of DAWs, many versions out there. Key players, obviously Steinberg Cubase, Ableton Live, FL Studio, PreSonus Studio One, Logic, GarageBand would even be regarded as a DAW.
Reason, Reaper.
Reason, Reaper, these are all digital audio workstations. And Sam hit the nail on the head there.
But in South Africa, FL Studio is probably like the biggest.
Well, because who knows, who's heard? Apparently there's this genre of music that's quite popular in South Africa. It's called, what's it called?
Ama.
Ama what?
Bibi.
Ama what?
Piano.
Ama piano. Okay, and why? What is the most important thing in this door?
For any
That-
piano producer.
For anybody who wants to make piano, what is the most important sound in here? The log drum. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So many moons ago, we didn't call it FL Studio. We called it, some people still refer to it as Fruity Loops.
Fruity Loops.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, Fruity Loops, yeah. But the nice thing about Fruity Loops, FL Studio, is that it can work as a door on its own. In other words, you don't need any other doors, not like a door that you open and close, DAW. Alternatively, it can work within Cubase, Studio One, Logic, Reason as a plugin,
Plugin, yeah.
a virtual studio plugin. So it can be like, for example, if you're working on Microsoft Office and you want to use Microsoft Word or Excel, that's kind of like a plugin that works within the actual framework of the bigger door. All right, yeah. So that's it.
Sam, when we come back to you, you already started talking about interface. So I'm going to ask the question, why is an audio interface important in a home recording studio?
So in the most basic of terms, you can plug your microphone, you could type your instrument into it, and it changes your analog signals into a digital signal.
Right.
And that's what goes into your DAW. So you strum your guitar, and essentially, the better your interface, the closer to what you would describe as a professional sounding bit of music. Well,
Yeah.
it's still down to the way you play as well, of course, but professional sounding bit of music will end up on your computer or whatever you're using, so that then you can manipulate it if you want to, however you want to, using the DAW, using the DAW. So, yeah, for example, this is a competitor of mine. But I'm going to let that slide for now.
No.
Because it's one of the brands that Peter
Yeah.
distributes with Turk.
But I think what we need to do is we need to say basically, so your sound card is all part of the recording chain. All right, and I think that's the most important thing. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to record through a recording chain. We're trying to take what is, like my voice is now analog, all right, and we need to translate or convert my analog voice into a digital signal, which is what the recording software, the DAW, is able to embed on a computer's hard drive in terms of a processor. And
Ones and zeros.
yeah, ones and zeros, yeah.
Yeah.
So part of the recording chain would obviously be a microphone. This, I'm talking through a microphone now, but a microphone as in a traditional microphone that one all knows. All right, that then plugs in with a cable into the back of this device. Okay, that's where the conversion takes place. You get different types of audio interfaces. We used to call them sound cards. We prefer to talk about an audio interface. And then that basically translates, converts the signal into the computer. Once it's in the actual computer itself, we can then use our DAW to do the mixing and the editing and putting effects on and doing all and performing all the magic that actually takes place. Obviously, in order for you to know what you're doing, you want to hear what you're doing. So the most simple thing would be to connect some headphones, okay, which will work, which will do the trick. Alternatively, what one wants to do is one wants to get a pair of recording studio monitors, which would sit in front of you, which allows you to hear back what you've recorded. Most importantly, what differentiates a recording studio monitor from a hi-fi monitor is that a recording studio monitor is neutral. In other words, it doesn't color the sound. In fact, what it needs to do is it needs to highlight any mistakes or any mixing errors you may have made so that you can correct it. Because remember, I need to take whatever I've recorded and I need to be able to play it back in various environments. I may be asked to play it back through a pair of speakers like this, but more importantly, I may be asked to play it through a pair of earphones or I may need to take it to my motor car and play it in my motor car. All right, and if I've mixed a song specifically designed to play out speakers that big, and I then put it in my motor car and switch it on, and I wonder why my motor car speakers break, okay, it's because it's basically been mixed incorrectly.
Car stereo speakers are a really, really good test for your mix. They really are, yeah.
So you'll see in some of the older studios, they have what I call mix cubes. That is actually like a little block like that with a tiny little speaker inside. So sometimes, yes, sometimes the actual better monitors to mix on are actually the smaller ones, because they're going to actually be more critical in terms of what you're doing. They're not going to be as forgiving as a bigger pair of monitors. So sound cards, you can get sound cards. Correct me? Audio interfaces, yes. But if it is 999 Rand, it probably is a sound card. So audio interfaces that are very affordable, that have got a single input. You get some that allow you to plug an entire band in. So I could have 24 people standing in front of me and I want to record them all the same time. They have 24 inputs. If I wanted to, I could plug them all in. I don't recommend that, but you can do that. And then one last little thing that I've got here. This is actually, so in other words, if I'm a musician, all right, and I'm actually going to be playing music, ideally I'd like something that allows me, like you're using on your computer, if you're working with Microsoft Word or Office, you're using a keypad. So as a musician, I want to use something that emulates an instrument, and we have different devices. This is actually a mini keyboard, musical keyboard, and we have the same thing, which would be mini drum pads. Again, there's no limitations in terms of what you can achieve, and we go back to that hashtag, make music, not excuses.
Yeah. Right, so you'd already started touching on this one. Let's talk to, and I'm going to couple these two together. I'm very pedantic about the type of microphone I use. Right now, this is a handheld. You are on the other one, what do we call this?
Headset mic.
Headset.
Headset mic, right. But you also mentioned the headphones. So let's talk to home studio recording. What type of microphones, why, and also the type of headphones that you need to use. Toby?
Okay, so for microphones, well, it depends on what you want to do. But if you want to be a singer, rapper, and you want to record that, then I would say you should go with a large diaphragm condenser mic, because that is a very nice, open, sensitive mic. It will capture the whole frequency of your voice. But if you want to do like a podcast or a voiceover and all that, then you can go with a dynamic mic, which is more less sensitive, but it captures the spoken word very nicely. So I would recommend, either a condenser or a dynamic mic. But most popular is the condenser one. Yeah.
And then the headphones?
Headphones, so you get you get three types: semi-open, closed, and open headphones. So it also depends on what you do. But for recording, you should go for closed headphones, because the sound doesn't really bleed from the headphone back to the mic. Because you only want the mic to capture your voice, not to capture what's coming from the headphone. So for recording, I would recommend closed headphone. And for mixing, then you can go for like a open or semi-open headphones, because it's a bit more natural sounding.
Fantastic. The word I was looking for a countryman, Mike. You've just touched on it, Derby. We are in an open space here at the Gallagher MusicEx, hashtag Music Moves, acoustics.
Yes.
Your setting, your home environment, how important is that one in recording, and how can you fix it if you find that perhaps it's not the best sound acoustically? Peter, you want to take that? I see that smile.
The reason why I'm laughing is that because if you think that your room doesn't really have the correct acoustics, everybody has a bathroom at home, eh?
I was never ready for that.
No. There's always been a joke that you sometimes get the actual best acoustics in your bathroom. That's not necessarily the case. Acoustics is an incredibly tricky thing. Every single room is different. There are some basics that one can do. What we're trying to do is we're not trying to soundproof. So if you're recording, you're not actually trying to soundproof your room. All right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to control the reflections. Okay? Because really what we don't want is if I'm making a recording and I have my voice traveling, which is what it does do, it's a sound wave. I don't want it traveling across the room, hitting the wall on the opposite side of the room, and then traveling back, and then coming back into the microphone. So what we want to do is we want to have kind of devices and tools that actually absorb the sound and stop the reflections and the
Mainly
reflections from coming back, yeah. What we do have is we have tools today which are quite amazing, quite revolutionary. What these tools do is, according to your room, you set up a little microphone. What the microphone does is it actually then auto-corrects and self-corrects the acoustics in the room according to the size of the room and the acoustics in your particular room. So there are various things that you can do to minimize the reflections and to get your room set up as acoustically as best as acoustically as possible. What is quite interesting, and we talked about a little bit earlier on, is that a lot of people actually don't pay enough attention to that. So what they'll do is they'll spend an inordinate amount of money on buying the best studio monitors, the best microphones, the best equipment, and then they don't actually check the acoustics in their room, and then they wonder why their recordings don't sound as good as they could sound. And that's actually a point, the reality is that it's not necessarily the equipment you're using in your studio that delivers the results. It's the person that's operating the equipment in the studio that develops the results. So I can give one chap equipment that's not as good, and I can give somebody else exceptional equipment, and the gent or the lady who's got the equipment that's not as good actually has recordings that sound better, or the end result is far better than the other person. So it's important.
So Peter, is it yet saying it is the user that is important?
Yeah. It is so important. The reality is that, if you are a musician, if you want to make music, if you want to make your musical dreams come true, there's only a certain amount where you can rely on people to assist you. In other words, I can only educate you to a certain degree. I can only help you to a certain degree. But ultimately, it comes down to that particular person to self-educate, to self-empower, to go online. The tutorials. In fact, you today can go out there and become a recording studio engineer, a producer, a consultant, without actually having any formal training, because there's just so much content that is out there on YouTube and other platforms for you to learn.
Yeah,
and workshop. And workshop.
And workshop sessions, of course.
There are instruments, there are MIDI controllers, there are keyboards now that come with all sorts of features so that you can never play the wrong note. They quantize everything for you. They are what some people in the past would have said almost cheating for you. Like there's the saying making music easy to make, and some people actually find that quite difficult to stomach because they think that making music should be challenging. The one thing that it should be is rewarding, and that comes from practice. So you can't shirk the practice. So regardless of what technologies come out, you might find that it might be easier to play that chord or know where the progression goes next because of what this instrument is telling you almost what to do. But unless you're doing it, you're not going to get good at it, and you won't get the ear for it either unless you keep practicing and practicing and practicing. Yeah. Going back on a couple of things, towards headphones, you don't need to spend a load of money on those, but make sure you try a few out because they're so subjective. Yeah. One man's gold is another man's coal. Honestly, like with headphones, it's really interesting. I worked for a headphone company for a while, and it's so funny just the different opinions people have on the same bit of equipment. And then also the setup of your room. Peter's exactly right. You're not looking to soundproof it, but if you're making a podcast or something like that and finding that your microphone is reverbing a little bit, and this is just a really quick tip, get yourself inside a wardrobe, put a duvet cover over you and try recording yourself in there, and it'll kill it dead so it won't reverb too much. And there you go, and that's a nice affordable way of getting a better sound.
Thank you very much. I've actually done a few voiceovers in a wardrobe. Now that you mentioned it, I stuck me in a wardrobe, closed it a little bit, and it actually came out sounding very professional.
That's quick.
So thank you for that tip.
Sorry, or even do it in your car. You can actually record. You can actually record like voiceover and all that in your car. The acoustic in your car is probably one of the best.
You'll be surprised how many people actually do streams or do podcasts or are doing things on Instagram, and you find them sitting in their motor car, and you think, but why are you always sitting in your motor car? Well, because it sounds best in my motor car.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd forgotten that. Then you just put it right there at the top of the dashboard and you position it accordingly. Fantastic. We come to the part of education, and this is one thing that, and I want to address it to Botshepo. He's been saying these workshops, post this around education and education. Let's talk to some of the common challenges people face when starting with home recording. Please educate us on that. Dobie?
I
Dobie,
would
I'm
say,
sorry. I don't mind if I jump in before him
not a problem.
because you see, the thing is,
Yeah.
with Dobie's very knowledgeable about this stuff. Okay, so what I notice, okay, is that when we talk to people about recording, okay, for them, they're actually overwhelmed. So we've got to try, and that's what we've done here, is we've actually tried to make it as simple as possible. And for them to also appreciate the fact that this is never, ever something they're going to become all knowledgeable about. It's an ongoing learning process. And what we do is we reassure people, none of the products that we represent, none of the brands I represent, nothing that we recommend is, and I'm going to use the word, cheap and nasty. I don't want you to buy something from me and then to realize a month later, I've just spent my money, all right, and I need to actually buy something of better quality. I would rather say to you, rather go back, okay, and save a little bit longer and then come back and make the correct purchase. Because in a year's time, I still want you to own the same microphone you bought from me a year ago. I just want it to be an additional microphone to anything else you may have bought at that particular point in time. And then talking about the technical side, Dobie can go.
yes, but I would say one of the biggest challenge is when people come in looking for like a studio setup, they always think that they need to spend a lot of money at one go.
Yeah.
Like one time, maybe 20,000 rand, 30,000 rand. So that overwhelms them, and they're actually scared to even go and buy a studio.
Yep.
So I always tell them, no, let's just take it easy, one step at a time. Let's get a mic first, or it depends on what you need. But you can get a mic first, or get a headphone, get a speaker first, or even just get the software. Play around with the software. After 2 months, get a sound card, and then another 2 months, get a mic and all that. So it's a very easy one, like a easy process. So you don't have to come in and get everything at once. And I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges that people have. Yeah.
I think
It's
that's
a gradual process. You don't have to outlay the capital.
Yeah.
Work with what you need at that time.
Well, if somebody, I mean, if somebody came in, if you came to me now and you said, Peter, I want to come to your stand now, and I want to buy something right now that I can go home with this afternoon, and I can plug it into my computer, and I can record immediately. We've got a little pack out there that sells for 5,000 rand. The next level up sells for 8,000 rand, and that includes also a pair of studio monitors. So think about that.
There's another one. It's just a USB mic that's probably below 3,000 rand. You can connect that mic to your computer and you can record. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, I think
Fantastic, yeah.
I think one of the biggest things for people as well is education. There's a lot of music schools that are still very based on classical instruments as well.
Yeah. Wow.
So whilst it's getting better, don't get me wrong, it's getting better. Like you walk around here and there are music schools that are doing music production, and it's actually what they lean into the most. I think where the biggest part of intimidation is that this audio interface that doesn't look like a guitar or a microphone or a drum kit or anything like that. So it can look pretty scary. But that said, people a lot younger than me that want to start learning how to record, their brains are a lot more malleable, and they have seen it all before. They see it on social media now. So therefore they know they need this or that to get started. So it gives them a good idea. During the pandemic, during the lockdown and things like that, home recording exploded because people were at home, they wanted to do something, keep themselves active. But the people that were the most intimidated during that period were actually musicians that had been playing guitars for years, or they'd been playing keys for years, and they now wanted to start recording because it felt completely out of their depth. So I think the best thing that we've got now is we've got a generation of young music makers that want to record and want to learn, and therefore they're going to schools that's what they're solely creating with, and they walk away with a good idea of what they need to do.
I think Sam actually is the point you've made now. So he's talking about if you go to a music store or a music shop and you walk in there and that music store is still very traditional in what it sells and offers, you have to question that. You need to go in there and say, guys, you know what? You make a living selling acoustic guitars, violins, cellos, brass equipment. Are you skilled enough to actually make the correct suggestions and recommendations on the technology side? That's the one thing. The other important thing, is that Yvonne sitting there?
Yes, it is. She's been
Yvonne.
here the entire time.
Yvonne, you hear me? Okay, all right. I've had your son in my shop on numerous occasions. Anyway, the point I'm making here, and this is probably unique for South Africa, and this is actually something that actually makes me quite angry. And why does it make me angry? Because we, as a country, are doing a massive, massive, massive disservice to the youth of our country. And you know why we're doing a massive disservice to the youth of our country? Because where do children in South Africa go today to learn how to play a musical instrument? Where does the average child in South Africa go today to learn a musical instrument? They don't. They don't learn musical instruments. But what they can do is they can make music using technology. And what do we call those musicians who make music using technology? Dobie, what do we call them?
Producers.
No, they're not producers. They are beat makers.
Beat makers.
They are beat makers. And how do beat makers make music? Using what in their hand?
A mobile phone.
A mouse.
A mouse.
A mouse or a phone.
Yep.
Which basically means they cut, copy, paste, drag, and drop. But if I go to any of these beat makers and I say, here's a guitar, here's a bass, here's a sax, here's a keyboard, make music. They can't make music.
Yeah.
And that's a massive, 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 massive problem for me. Because while we have this technology, we also need musicians. And we need musicians from the age of 4, 5, 6 years old being taught how to play a musical instrument at schools in South Africa. Because by the time that child gets to the age of 17, 18, 19 years old, okay, to try and get somebody of that age to pick up a musical instrument and to learn how to play a musical instrument is almost impossible. So thank God, we have this wonderful technology that allows people who cannot play musical instruments, okay, to use the tools of cut, copy, paste, all right, to translate what's in their head. We also got to thank God for the fact that these programs have something called quantizing, which means I can go completely out of time and I can go quantize and it corrects it and makes it sound like I've done something. I can sing like Barbara Streisand or like Ivan Chaka Chaka here, okay, and I can be completely out of key. And then I go and I hit a program called Auto-Tune. And it makes me sound like I can sing like the angels. All right?
Yeah.
So, yes, there's pros and cons to this wonderful technology we have. But I go back to the fundamentals. I am very privileged to be able to go overseas to trade shows. And I've been at a show in America called the NAMM show in Los Angeles. And I've stood in a room like this, where there's a band playing. And the average age of the young gentlemen, young ladies and gentlemen standing around are 16, 17, 18 years old. And you know what they've all got on their backs? Instruments, musical instruments. 16, 17 years, 18. They've all got musical instruments, and they can play these instruments like it is a gift from God. But at the same time, I can put them in a recording studio, and I can say, sit behind that massive 32-channel digital console there, and I can say, operate it. I can open up Cubase or Ableton Live or any of these other tools out there, and I can say, work it, and they can work it like it's second nature to them. So they're able to take this wonderful technology of being able to be a musician and the musicality and play, all right, and they're able to marry that together with the world of technology. That is the ultimate. And that is a big problem we have in South Africa. In 20, 30 years' time, when all the musicians who learned how to play musical instruments 30 years ago are dead, who's going to be playing musical instruments if we don't have anybody being taught how to play them today? No one.
I think you need to write a manifesto, Peter. Get that
Well,
down.
no, it's a massive, 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 massive problem. I know Don Larker. I know Oskido. All right? I know all the musicians. I know all the artists. All right? And we all agree that we have a big, big problem. But what are we as a country doing to change it? I don't know. There may be pockets of excellence all around the place, but there's no one organization, there's no one cohesive unit who's saying, you know what, you're doing something there, you're doing something, you're doing something there. We need to bring you all under one roof, and we all need to have the same objective and the same goal, and that is to create a new generation of real musicians.
Just like Sam said, we will give you the custodianship of it. By this time next year, please can we see a manifesto? Thank you to that. And can we collaborate? Because all of these workshops have been about collaboration, and MusicEx itself has been about collaboration. Yeah. I need to wrap up this panel, but I'm going to end off with this question. What are some common mistakes to avoid when setting up a home studio? I'm going to give it to all three of you as we wrap up. Derby, let's start with you.
Common mistake.
Yep.
Not knowing your software. I would say don't know how to operate your software. That's probably the most common mistake I find. Or actually not knowing your gear, in fact, because a lot of people they have all these beautiful gear, but they don't take time to learn it, and then they depend on their friends or someone else, or they pay an engineer to do it. But they spend a lot of money, like 30, 40,000 rand on this beautiful gear, and they don't know that there's YouTube, there's many things, like what you said before, to actually just learn. Once you know the gear, it's very easy to record. And actually, anyone can be a producer and an engineer. You just need to spend some time on educating yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Peter?
My comment, mine would be very, very specific to South Africa, is trying to record when there's load shedding.
We hear you. Don't get controversial.
That would be a mistake, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know what load shedding. So for Sam, he doesn't know what load shedding is.
Yeah.
When we don't have electricity. Is it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did have, yeah. Everything went down. I was bamboozled when I first found out that load shedding. Yeah. What would mine be? Probably. I was gonna say being afraid to make mistakes when you're producing, because happy accidents are often some of the best things you'll ever produce. Yes. But I would say if we're actually talking about setting up a studio, Dobie touched on it earlier. You don't need to spend much to get started. Like, don't think that you've got to break the bank to get yourself a decent setup. It's honestly, you can start with a USB mic and then work your way up to an interface, and you'll get something down, and your studio will grow with you. And so you don't need to spend too much to start with.
So I'm going to do Run Forest Run, just to do 2 questions, and then we're going to wrap up. When you ask that question, 20 seconds, nothing more than that, and who you're directing the question to. Thank you.
Hi there, guys. Anthony here. producer, self-taught, and this I'm glad Sam's here because this question is directly for you. I used to have a PreSonus sound card or interface with PreSonus speakers, monitors, and I've recently changed to a Focusrite
Okay.
Scarlett i212.
202, yeah.
And regularly I have this. It's all, I don't know if it's like feedback.
Okay.
But whenever, so I've kind of tuned it to 44.1 kilohertz.
Yeah.
On my channel speed, and every now and again, whenever I'm having sound or watching YouTube, I plug it all through my interface. But
Yeah.
it kind of starts chopping up anything that I do, and then I have to change the frequency to like 48 kilohertz.
Yeah, yeah.
And back.
Smaller PC.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
I reckon that's got something to do, and you're doing it through a PC, right? Yeah, okay. I think that's got probably something to do with your setup within your PC rather than the sound card itself. I'll have a chat to you afterwards about that. All right, it should be a pretty
Thanks,
quick
Sam.
fix, and if not, I'll get it sorted for you. All right.
Thank you. I'm glad you came for this session.
Sounds like a
20
a
seconds.
RAM. It's not an ASIO latency. It's
Good day, guys. My name is Two Cups. I'm from the Yellow Room podcast cipher. I would like to know if I just started opening up a podcast. We are based in Johannesburg, in Braamfontein. I would like to know what type of equipment, I would say sound card, call it that way, what type of sound card I need if I want to take my podcast outside.
It's a great question, actually.
Who's going to take that question? Toby, you look like you want to say something.
Outside where? Like where there's no electricity or
Oh, I was saying outdoors, because I'm having also on the podcast, we also having a cipher for rappers and singers. So I want to know, is it the same equipment that I'm using for the podcast, or should I get the other equipment for broadcasting outside?
Give me the sec.
All right,
actually-
whilst you're holding
sorry.
a sec, do you want to answer that? Or
Yes,
you're
yeah.
holding a sec?
no, let me answer.
Cool. I've got two questions, then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
So yeah, so you can actually use what you have now, but I would say there's a product called Zoom. I think it's called Zoom P8 or T8. It's basically like a handheld recorder, but at the same time you can take it outdoor, charge it, and then plug everything in, and then just record. Another product is a Rodecaster Pro 2. That also allows you to connect everything and just record onto an SD card.
Yeah.
So I would say those are the products that you want to look at. Something that can record onto an SD card, but you don't really need to plug it into power or something like that.
So it's designed to record mobile, and then once you've recorded mobile, you can then bring whatever format it's recorded to, whether it's the actual unit itself or the SD card, and put it on your PC inside. Obviously, if you're working on a laptop and you're using a kind of a bus-powered sound card or audio interface, then obviously that is mobile as well.
Yeah.
Except it's a little bit bigger, and you've got to take your laptop with you.
Yeah.
But also don't forget your cell phone.
Oh, your
If
cell
you buy
phone.
the right device and connect a mic, or even 2 mics, then you can go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say.
Okay, here's a question here. 20 seconds, Butami.
Mukiri here. Well, I'm not a creative. I'm in the legal fraternity. But I just have a quick question. What's your forecast of the future with regards to the advent of AI, with what it can do now? It can do everything for you. Your vocals, your beats. So what's your future focus with regards to AI on the music scene?
I'll give a very quick one.
Thanks, Sam.
AI is an incredible opportunity for us. It's an amazing opportunity for us. We've just got to use it in a way that doesn't stifle creatives to the point where we start losing money ourselves. And the people that have the power over the AI are the ones that take all the money from the musicians when it's hard enough already. So that's my opinion of it.
Well, a lot of, I mean, so obviously the recording side of things where you're talking about product, it's like hardware. I mean, that's not necessarily affected by AI. But if you look at a lot of the product that we actually sell already, in fact, it may not be a strict definition of AI, but I think in a lot of the stuff that we've been doing for many, many years, I mean, it essentially has been incorporating AI even back then. You know, there's the different eras. If you want to talk about, you know, where we have the analog era, then you have the digital era, Then you have the virtual studio technology era, which was basically where you would actually take all those essential elements you'd have in a recording studio and you'd actually transform them into a piece of software. So in other words, as you would see that mixing desk on the other side there with all the faders, we have exactly the same thing, but it's just an exact replica in the software environment. And now you get the AI side of things. So it's just another progression or another level of technology that we're going to incorporate and utilize. And it also just means that at the end of the day, think about it. It's competition. At the end of the day, when you have competition, it just means that the various people in the game have got to up
Level up.
their level.
Yeah, there's always been competition.
Yeah.
Level up, level up. Butsepo, we are closing the session with you. 20 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Nomalanga. Firstly, let me welcome Sam. Welcome to South Africa.
Thank
Hope
you.
it's not your last.
No.
Peter, I felt your frustration as I was sitting here. I'm part with Yvonne of this whole procession.
Yes.
And that is exactly your frustration you are venting is exactly what we want to circumvent. So rest assured, we are talking and finding other channels on how we can get our kids back to play instruments. I came from FUBA, Federated Union of the Black Artists. I never honed my musical talents, but they've always been with me. I work with Yvonne.
Yeah.
So rest assured, you are not talking in silos. So we'll communicate after this. I actually reached out to Dobby earlier on to you to see you in the week about what we can do because I wear so many hats, including the one of being the head of Black Business Council in the built environment. So this is part of the built environment. And by the way, if you go back, I'll still just 10 more seconds. If you go back to who we are as humans, it's not about music. It's about frequencies. You go to all indigenous humans in the world, and exclusively Africans, we've never had to take any medication for any ailment. It has always been in the resonance of the frequency and the singing. We went through apartheid, the most difficult period, but we still went home, we're smiling, we're dancing, because we understood how to manipulate frequencies. The difference is that how to reach that audience is that you're not talking to the right people. Breed your new people that will consume this. Don't just do what the rest of the world is doing, saying there's a new market dumping. Get that market to be addicted in what you do, then we can grow it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been wonderful workshops. We started on Friday. We came into Saturday. Today is Sunday. I want to say thank you very much. Peter, I know you're like, we are going to do this workshop. People or no people, we are here. Thank you so, so much. Toby, thank you. I kept on seeing you in the exhibition area. Sam, welcome to South Africa.
Thank you.
I'm going to say to you, Vavas J, where have you been? Carry on coming here.
Thank you.
Until we meet again next time, it has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you to Mom Yvonne, the champion for
you, Yvonne.
MusicEx workshops. Siyabonga.